So far, we've been working on adding integers using modeling, like a number line and integer chips. Today, we're going to write out our adding integers rules, because in 7th grade, you're expected to move to using the rules. So today, we're focusing on adding integers. Let me show you what that means. Look in example 1. In between the 4 and the 6, we have an addition sign. We're adding integers. Look at example 2. In between the -5 and the -1, we have an addition symbol. We're adding these two integers. Look at example 3. I hope you're starting to see the pattern. In between, we have an addition sign. We're adding these integers. And finally, example 4, between -7 and -10, we have an addition sign. We're adding the integers. So this set of examples, this whole set, number 1, are all examples where the signs are the same. So if the signs are the same, let me go over to my typing tool, so text box. If the signs are the same, you add. The sign on the original number remains. Basically, we keep the same sign. So same and same, that's the key word. If the signs are the same, you add. Keep the same sign. Let me show you what that means. So I'm going to go over to this markup tool, which is a highlighter, and I'm going to choose the yellow choice because I noticed that the signs are the same. And when I mean the signs are the same, I mean this is a +4 and this is a +6. So when we're talking about the signs being the same, we're saying these two numbers that are being added are both positives, +4, +6. And if the signs are the same, you just add them together. So 4 plus 6 gives me 10. So let me go down to my drawing tool. And 4 plus 6 is 10. Let's see if this will be thick enough for you to see. Yeah, it is. Okay, so 4 plus 6 gives us 10. Now let's go on to the next example. I'll go to my markup tool and I'm going to choose red this time because I'm noticing that I have a -5. Oh, let me make sure that works. A -5 and a -1. Go back to drawing. So the sign on this number is a negative, and the sign on this number is negative. So if the signs are the same, they're both negatives, then you add. Let me underline that. So if the signs are the same, we're going to add. So what's 5 plus 1? Well, 5 plus 1 is 6, and they're both negative, so we put a negative on the 6. So if the signs are the same, we added. 5 plus 1 is 6, and then keep the same sign. So we kept this negative, we kept the same sign, and that's our answer, -6. All right, going over to example 3, I'll go back to my markup tool, my highlighter, and I choose yellow because I see that I have a +11 and a +9, so my answer is also going to be positive. I'll go over to my drawing tool, and 11 plus 9 gives me 20. And these were both positive, so my answer is going to be positive. All right, example 4, -7 plus -10. I go to my markup tool to show that these are both negative numbers. So I have a -7 and a -10. And when they're both the same, they're both negatives, you add it together, so I get 17. And then I keep the sign. So if the sign on these was negative, then I keep that sign. So -7 plus -10 gives me -17. Think about it. If you had 7 red integer chips and 10 red integer chips, now we have 17 red integer chips. If we had 11 yellow integer chips and 9 yellow integer chips, now we have 20 yellow integer chips. Okay, so that was section 1. This was the first part of the adding integers rules. Let's move on to the second part. In all of these examples, take a look. We still are adding. So we have an addition sign in between. I'm not going to circle all of these, but just notice that there's an addition sign between each set of integers. But in these examples, it's different. The numbers here, -3 and 8, have different signs. So that's a negative number, and this is a positive number. This is a positive number. This is a negative number. So let's write our rule. And I'll go to, I actually need to go to text box. If the signs are different, you subtract. We'll get to this part down here, these three things, when we're working on an example. All right, so example 5, I'm going to go to my markup, and I'm going to highlight the red number and then the yellow number. So I'm just referring back to our integer chips, what we've learned when we worked with integer chips. This is like we have 3 red integer chips. This is like we have 8 yellow integer chips. If the signs are different, so that's a -3, that's what I'm talking about. This is a +8, so those signs are different, and you're adding them, so there's an addition sign between, then you subtract. Let me underline that. Let's underline that. So if the signs are different, you subtract. So I take 8 and I subtract 3, and the difference is 5. And then I need to make a decision. Is this a -5 or a +5? Well, this is where this next part comes in. Take the sign of the quantity you have more of. Okay, ask yourself, do I have more negatives or more positives? So think about your integer chips. If we had 3 red integer chips and 8 yellow integer chips, which do you have more of, the yellow integer chips or the red integer chips? Well, if we have 8 yellow chips, that's more than 3 red chips. So we have more of the positives. So the answer is +5. You can also think of it as taking the sign of the larger number in terms of absolute value. Remember we talked about absolute value this week. So absolute value, think about it. The absolute value of -3 is 3. The absolute value of 8 is 8. Remember, absolute value is distance from 0. So -3 is 3 units from 0. 8 is 8 units from 0. Basically, you're writing the number as a positive. And then we compare, which is larger, 8 or 3? Well, 8 is larger. Well, the 8 was the positive number, so our answer is going to be positive. Let's look at example 6. I'm going to highlight I got to go to markup, the highlighter. And I'm going to, choose yellow, and there's my positive number. And then I'll choose red, there's my negative number. So I'm showing you that the signs are different. If the signs are different, we subtract. All right, so 20 minus 10. Basically, I'm just thinking of these numbers in terms of absolute value. So the absolute value of -20 is 20. So if you put this in absolute value symbol, the absolute value of -20 is 20. And the absolute value of 10 is 10. So when you take the absolute value, which is larger, the 20 is larger, so I put that at the top when I'm subtracting. 20 minus 10, I get 10. And then you take the sign of what you have more of. So in terms of absolute value, which one is larger? Well, the 20 is larger, so I'm going to take the sign from the 20. You can also think of it as what do you have more of? So I have more negatives. I have 20 negatives and I only have 10 positives. So the negatives went out if you think of it in terms of, 0 pairs. I would have 10 positives canceling out 10 negatives, and then I'd have 10 extra negatives left over. Example 7. Let's go to our markup tool, our highlighter, and the 2 is positive, and the -9 is negative. When the signs are different, we subtract. So I go to my drawing tool, and I take the larger number in terms of absolute value, put that at the top. 9 minus 2 is 7. And then ask yourself, what do I have more of? Well, if you think about in integer chips, you have 9 red chips and 2 yellow chips. So the red chips would win out. So -7. Example 8, I go to my highlighter and I'll mark my negative value, -1, and then my positive value, +6. when the signs are different, we have a positive number and a negative number. Signs are different, you subtract. So I take 6 and subtract 1, and I get 5. And I have more positives than negatives, so my answer is positive 5. Example 9, 2 plus a negative 7. So I go to my markup tool, I highlight the positive number, and then I'm going to highlight the negative number. Since one is positive and one's a negative, signs are different, we subtract. Go to my drawing tool, take the larger number in terms of absolute value, the 7 is larger in terms of absolute value, and subtract the smaller number, and the difference is 5. In this example though, I have more negatives than positives, so I'm going to write negative 5. If you think of it in terms of your integer chips, 2 yellow chips would cancel out 2 red chips, and then you'd still have 5 more red chips left, so the answer is negative 5. Example 10, negative 3 plus 12. I go to my markup tool, my highlighter, I'll highlight the negative number in red, so I think of my integer chips, and then I highlight the yellow integer, which is the 12. Signs are different. This is a negative, this is a positive. Signs are different, we subtract. So 12 minus 3, we get 9. And what do we have more of? Do we have more negatives or more positives? We have more of the positives, so our answer is a positive 9. So in summary, if the signs are the same, look, they're both positive, look, they're both negative. If the signs are the same, we add them together. So 4 and 6 makes 10, 5 and 1 makes 6. But if the signs are different, we subtract. Look, I have a negative number and I have a positive number. They're different, so I subtract. 8 minus 3 is 5. 6 minus 1 is 5. 20 minus 10 is 10, so we're subtracting. Now that we've summarized the rules, let's come down to this chart. You are going to be completing a chart like this on your own, and then you'll be checking your answers using an answer key. So we're going to fill out a chart together so that you get an idea of how you're supposed to do this assignment. So the original problem says 5 plus 2. And which rule do we use? Okay, so I'm going to go over to my typing tool. And I need to make this a little bit smaller so it'll fit. Let's try size 16. Okay, signs are the same. So I'm just going to put same signs, and then that means that you add. Same signs, you add. So then we can just do this in our head. We don't really need to show work for some of these. 5 plus 2, we can do that in our head, it's 7. So I'm going to go over to my drawing tool and I'll write 7. All right, part B, negative 8 plus negative 3. Are the signs the same? So look at these two numbers. Are those the same or are the signs different? And it might help you. You might at this point need to use your highlighter. So we have a negative 8. Oops. I don't think it's going to work because I circled it. Let me undo that. So we have a negative 8 and a negative 3. So the signs are the same. I'll go to my typing. Same signs, we add. So 8 plus 3 is 11. So a negative 8 plus a negative 3 gives me negative 11. All right, next problem. 4 plus 6. Take a look at the numbers. 4 and 6 are both positives. So I go to the text box. Still, same rule. Signs are the same signs. You add, and 4 and 6 makes 10. All right, negative 3 plus 5. So this number is negative. This number is positive. So then I'll type different signs. What we're going to do is we're going to subtract. All right, so this is where I'm going to show my work. So I have to take the 5 and subtract the 3, and we get 2. And then what do you have more of? We have more of the positive, so it's a positive 2. All right, 7 plus a negative 10. I go to my markup tool. I have a red integer, and I have a yellow integer. So when I use my text box and write, I'm going to write that the signs are different. So different signs we will subtract. Oops, let me fix that. Different signs we subtract. And then we take 10 and we subtract 7. And we get 3. And we have more negatives than positives. So this is a negative 3 is our answer here. Letter F. I think we're ready to just start typing. So we have a negative 6 and a positive 4. So different signs we subtract. So 6 minus 4 gives us 2. And we have more negatives. We have 6 negatives versus only 4 positives, so the answer is going to be negative. Letter G, negative 7 and negative 20, those signs are the same. So same signs we add. So 20 plus 7 is 27, and we keep the same sign. So if we had 7 negatives and 20 negatives, now we have negative 27 negatives. Letter H, the signs are different. So different signs we subtract. All right, so think about it. Which number is larger in terms of absolute value? In terms of absolute value, the 76 is larger, so that goes at the top. And the 25 is smaller in terms of absolute value. Remember, absolute value is distance from 0. It makes the number positive. So the absolute value of negative 76 is 76. The absolute value of 25 is 25. All right, 6 minus 5 is 1. 7 minus 2 is 5. And now we have to ask ourselves, after we subtracted, did we have more negatives or more positives? We have 76 red integer chips and only 25 yellow. So the negatives went out. Letter I, negative 18 plus 54. These are different signs. We have a positive 54 and a negative 18. So one's negative, one's positive. Different signs we subtract. In terms of absolute value, this is 18 and this is 54. So in terms of absolute value, 54 is larger. So we put that at the top and we subtract the 18. Bar from the 5, make it a 4. Add 10 to the 4, making it 14. 14 minus 8 is 6. 4 minus 1 is 3. So we get 36, and then we have to decide, do we have more negatives or more positives? We have more positive. We have 54 positives, so this is a positive 36. Letter J, signs are the same. These are both negatives. So same signs we add. So I add 68 and 33. And I like to stay in the same habit where I put the larger number on top. And when I say larger number, I mean larger number in terms of absolute value. The absolute value of negative 68 is 68. The absolute value of negative 33 is 33. 8 plus 3 is 11. Carry the 1. 6 and 3 is 9. Plus 1 is 10. So we get 101. Now, you have to keep the same sign. So if signs are the same, you add, and then you keep the same sign. So if you have a negative 33 and a negative 68, that is equivalent to negative 101 when you combine them. All right, letter K, our final problem. So I'm going to go to the text box, and the signs are different. This is a negative 45, and this is a positive 27. So one's positive and one is negative, so they are different. They have different signs, these two integers. And so with different signs, you subtract. I go to my drawing tool, And the absolute value of negative 45 is 45. The absolute value of 27 is 27. Basically, it makes it positive. Absolute value is distance from 0. And I take the larger one in terms of absolute value, which is the 45, and I subtract the smaller one in terms of absolute value. 5 minus 7, I need to borrow, so I change that 4 to a 3, and then I add 10 to the 5, making it 15. 15 minus 7 is 8. 3 minus 2 is 1. So I'm left with 18. Then I have to go back and decide, do I have more positives or more negatives? Well, I have 45 negatives and only 27 positives. So I have more negatives than positives, so the answer is negative. I hope that this video helps you as you fill out your chart. Be sure to check your answer when you're finished. So if you make a mistake, go back and fix it, please.